feel good in it. I can't know my mom, sadly, and this is one of the only reasons and ways I can. And this is the closest I'll ever be getting to a hug from her.
There are names the world never forgets. Names tied to headlines so explosive, so relentless, that they become part of the cultural memory of an entire generation. Anna Nicole Smith is one of those names. She was glamorous and chaotic, larger than life, and deeply fragile all at once. She burned brightly, and she burned fast. When she passed away in February 2007, she left behind a world full of unanswered questions, a legal battle that had dragged on for years, and a daughter who was only 5 months old, a tiny girl who had no idea what kind of story she had been born into. That little girl was Danielyn Burkhead, and now, 18 years later, she is no longer a baby in the arms of her father on the courthouse steps. She is a young woman, standing at the edge of her own life, carrying a legacy most people her age could never imagine. For the first time in a meaningful way, Danielyn is speaking up, offering glimpses into a life that has been lived mostly away from cameras and tabloids. And what she is sharing is surprising, moving, and full of quiet strength. So today, we are pulling back the curtain. This is the story of who Danielyn Burkhead really is, how she grew up, what her father sacrificed to protect her, and what it truly means to be the daughter of one of the most talked about women in American history. When Larry Burkhead won custody of Danielyn in 2007, he did not step into the spotlight looking for fame. He stepped in looking for his daughter. A DNA test conducted in the Bahamas had confirmed what he had been saying all along. He was Danielyn's biological father. And from that moment forward, everything he did was driven by one singular purpose: giving this little girl a life her mother never had the chance to live. Larry made a decision early on that many people in his position might not have made. He walked away from the chaos. He moved back to Kentucky, away from Los Angeles, away from the entertainment industry, away from the paparazzi who had made Anna Nicole's existence feel like a fishbowl. He built a quiet, grounded life in the Midwest, and he raised his daughter with intention. It was not always easy. Larry had to navigate the grief of losing someone he had deeply cared about while simultaneously raising a newborn alone. He had to respond to tabloid stories, manage legal matters, and find a way to talk to his daughter, eventually, about who her mother was and what had happened to her. But through all of it, he remained steady. He showed up. Every single day, he showed up. People who know the family well describe Larry as deeply devoted, someone who makes decisions carefully and always with Danielyn's best interests at the center. He coached her sports teams. He helped with homework. He took her to school events and made sure she had a circle of friends who knew her simply as Danielyn, not as Anna Nicole Smith's daughter. That was his greatest gift to her, the freedom to just be a kid. Most 18-year-olds are figuring out who they are for the first time. Danielyn has had to figure out who she is while simultaneously understanding who her mother was, and that is a profoundly different kind of coming of age. Anna Nicole Smith was everywhere when Danielyn was growing up, not in a living, breathing way, but in the cultural sense, referenced in magazines, documentaries revisited, anniversary pieces, social media threads. Every few years, the world would cycle back to Anna Nicole's story, and Danielyn would have to decide how to handle that renewed wave of attention. By all accounts, she has handled it with remarkable grace. Friends describe her as grounded, warm, and genuinely funny, someone who does not take herself too seriously, but who clearly has a deep inner life. She is described as someone who thinks before she speaks, who cares about the people around her, and who carries both intelligence and emotional depth in the way she moves through the world. She has spoken in recent years about what it feels like to grow up without a mother. She has said that she thinks about Anna Nicole often, that there is always a kind of undercurrent of missing someone she never really got to know. But she also speaks about it without bitterness. She has been surrounded by people who loved Anna Nicole, including Larry, who has been careful never to speak negatively about her, and so her understanding of her mother has been shaped by love rather than resentment. A portrait of Anna Nicole hangs in Danielyn's room. It is not a shrine, not a dramatic monument to grief. It is simply a photograph of her mother, hanging on the wall of her daughter's bedroom. Like any photo of someone who is loved and remembered, grief takes many forms. And for the Burkhead family, Some of that grief has found expression in small, quiet symbols. Butterflies have become one of those symbols, a gentle, private way of keeping Anna Nicole's memory present without turning it into a spectacle. When Danielyn sees a butterfly, she feels connected to her mother. It is the kind of thing that might sound small from the outside, but carries enormous weight when you understand the context. Larry has spoken about these private rituals over the years, always with care, never exploiting them for attention. He has said that he tries to keep Anna's spirit alive for Danielyn in ways that feel genuine rather than performative. He does not want his daughter to grow up with a mythologized version of her mother, a tabloid caricature, but with something closer to the real woman. Complicated, funny, loving, flawed, and deeply human. Danielyn, for her part, has said that she feels her mother's presence in her life, not in a supernatural sense, but in the way that love transcends physical absence. She has spoken about looking in the mirror and seeing her mother's features reflected back at her, and how that connection, physical and emotional, is something she holds on to. What is striking is how much Danielyn resembles Anna Nicole. The resemblance is undeniable and has been noted widely. But more than the physical similarity, there seems to be an echo of Anna Nicole's warmth and charisma in her daughter, a brightness that those who meet Danielyn often remark upon. Danielyn has not avoided the spotlight entirely. There have been a few carefully chosen moments where she has stepped into public view, and each time, she has done so on her own terms. Perhaps the most noted was her appearance in a tribute campaign for Guess, the fashion brand that had played a defining role in her mother's rise to fame in the early 1990s. Anna Nicole had become iconic largely through her Guess campaigns, those black and white photographs that made her look like a modern-day Marilyn Monroe. Danielyn posing for Guess Kids was a poignant, full-circle moment, a daughter honoring her mother's legacy in the exact space where that legacy had been built. But after that, Larry made a deliberate choice to step back. Modeling offers came in. He turned them down. He was clear, both publicly and privately, that his priority was protecting Danielyn's childhood, not monetizing her connection to her mother. He had watched what fame had done to Anna Nicole, how it had consumed her, how the pressure and the scrutiny had contributed to a spiral that ended in tragedy. He was not going to repeat that cycle with his daughter. This is not to say that Danielyn has no public presence. She appears at events with her father from time to time. She has been photographed at the Kentucky Derby, which has become something of a family tradition for the Burkheads. But these are appearances chosen with care, not a relentless pursuit of celebrity. If you want to understand who Danielyn Burkhead is at 18, the best place to start is with her passions, because they tell you everything about the kind of person she is choosing to become. She wants to study forensic science. That is not the answer most people expect when they ask a young woman from a famous family what she wants to do with her life. But it fits perfectly with everything those close to her describe. A deeply curious mind, a love of mysteries, a desire to understand how things work beneath the surface. Forensic science requires patience, precision, and an ability to sit with complexity. And from everything we know about Danielyn, those qualities are central to who she is. She is also passionate about Japanese culture and language, a passion she developed during her school years and has cultivated with genuine enthusiasm. She has described Japanese culture as fascinating to her in its depth and specificity, the way it rewards careful attention and sustained curiosity. She is learning the language, not as a performance of cosmopolitan sophistication, but because she genuinely loves it. She has also shown a strong creative side. She has been praised for her work in school plays, where those who have seen her perform say she brings real presence and emotional intelligence to the stage. And she dreams of one day creating her own makeup and clothing line, a vision that blends her love of fashion with her artistic instincts. Given Anna Nicole's own relationship with fashion and beauty, there is something beautiful about Danielyn channeling that inheritance into something creative and self-directed. What comes through in everything people say about her is that Danielyn is not trying to be Anna Nicole, and she's not trying to run from being Anna Nicole's daughter. She is doing something harder and more interesting than either of those things. She is figuring out who Danielyn Burkhead is independent of her origins, while still honoring them. Being the daughter of a famous and controversial figure means that your family's story is never entirely your own. Other people will tell it, spin it, monetize it. And in 2025, when a new wave of tabloid speculation and sensationalized stories began circulating about Anna Nicole's legacy in Danielyn's life, the Burkhead family had had enough. Larry and Danielyn released a firm, public statement. It was measured but unmistakably clear. They would not allow misinformation to define their family story. They stated that they trusted only real, living sources and real, verifiable facts. Not speculation, not rumors, not the narrative fabrications of people who had no genuine connection to Anna Nicole or to Danielyn. The statement said something important about who Danielyn has grown up to be. She is not passive. She is not someone who simply absorbs whatever the world says about her and moves on. She is someone who will stand up and say, clearly and without drama, that is not true, and we will not let it stand. That kind of self-advocacy, that willingness to assert the truth of your own experience against a culture that would rather tell a more sensational story, is a form of maturity that takes most people decades to develop. Danielyn arrived at it at 18. To fully understand Danielyn's journey, you have to understand her mother's. And Anna Nicole Smith's story is one that resists easy categorization. She grew up in Texas, the product of a difficult childhood, without a high school diploma, working jobs at places like Walmart and Red Lobster and Jim's Crispy Fried Chicken to support herself and her young son, Daniel. She eventually started dancing at strip clubs, not because it was her dream, but because the bills needed to be paid and options were limited. And then she took a risk. She sent photographs to Playboy, and Hugh Hefner saw something in her that the rest of the world had not yet noticed. What followed was meteoric. A cover in 1992, Playmate of the Year in 1993, a guest campaign that made her a household name, film roles, a reality television show, a marriage to a billionaire 4 times her age that the world never stopped judging. A legal battle over his estate that dragged through every level of the American court system, including the United States Supreme Court. And beneath all of it, beneath the glamour and the controversy and the tabloid noise, was a woman who loved her son fiercely, who carried wounds from her childhood that never fully healed, who struggled with addiction, and who, by the end of her life, had been through more grief than most people experience in a lifetime. Daniel's death in September 2006, just 3 days after Danielyn was born, is described by those who knew Anna Nicole as the moment her spirit broke. Everything after that was a woman trying to hold herself together with insufficient tools and insufficient support. Anna Nicole died in February 2007 at the age of 39. The official cause was an accidental overdose, a combination of prescription medications that proved fatal. She was laid to rest in the Bahamas, near Daniel. What she left behind was a daughter who deserved, and has received, the chance to grow up knowing who her mother really was, not the caricature, but the person. Standing at the threshold of adulthood, Danielyn Burkhead is someone worth paying attention to, not because of who her mother was, but because of who she is becoming. She is thoughtful in a way